Good evening, I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. My friend and colleague and comrade-at-arms troublemaker, Gordon Chang, is here. Gordon, good evening to you.
Good evening, John.
Do you feel like making some trouble in China, Gordon?
Of course.
Yes.
It just wouldn't be a day without making trouble.
Good afternoon, China. Here we are. That dynamic duo in New York is at it again, and we're joined by our accomplice, Associate Professor at Johns Hopkins University, Ho-fung. I'm very pleased to welcome you. Professor, good evening to you. 2 weeks ago, we were very pleased to speak to you about an upsetting matter going on in Hong Kong right now. That's the free part of China, going on in Hong Kong. Intimidation, brutality, conduct in the streets that's unacceptable, persecution, all of that, and it has to do with teachers and schools. You are in a school, you are a teacher, and I understand after your careful remarks to us 2 weeks ago, your administrator at Johns Hopkins University, we're talking about a school at the top of the solar system, received a letter of great protest about your remarks on the John Batchelor Show. Good evening, Professor, and what did that letter say?
Good evening, John and Gordon. Actually, the letter is quite poorly written, but its main point is to reiterate the points of the establishment in Hong Kong that in the event of the conflict on the streets in Mongkok, the Hong Kong police has been very patient doing their jobs, and the police are a lot biased towards the FARC. And while the school teacher being politically persecuted out as is angry, was shouting the foul language at the police. So my commentary and also the description of the event is kind of give the people wrong impression and it's biased against the Hong Kong police force. So it is what the letter said, and it is repeating the story of the establishment, that the reason that they used to persecute the school teacher. But this version of the story is actually at odds with most independent observers and journalists who are reporting about the event, in which many people see that the facts intimidating a civil society group, and then the police is standing aside, and the school teacher walked by and is not happy with what the police has been doing and to let the bullies going on. So the teacher argued with the police and in the middle of it and shout the foul language. It's not very bad foul language. It's WTF. And then the establishment group then jumped on it and then accused the teacher of being inappropriately behaving in public. And then the school teacher and the school that she was teaching is receiving tens of thousands of letters and asking the school to dismiss the teachers. And then 2 weeks ago, when I comment on this thing, and then the result is that I think an individual from the post-establishment group, or even those one of these FARC organization, I can't tell who he is write a letter to an administrator in my university.
And he wrote Johns Hopkins. The teacher's name is Lam. Ms. Lam wrote a letter to Johns Hopkins University to warn, to chastise. Gordon, what's the point? Why would you write Johns Hopkins? What are they thinking? Do they have... This is the United States of America, Gordon. Do they watch movies?
Well, the important point here is that this underlying incident, which, as Ho-fung said, was in the streets of Mongkok in Hong Kong, you had a teacher who was complaining basically about thug government.
Right.
And what has happened is the thugs have gotten very organized because they've been writing letters to people like Ho-fung who have appeared in the media to talk about this issue. Now, Ho-fung's administrator got a relatively mild letter, but other people have gotten nasty letters, and as Ho-fung had just told us, that the teacher in question, her school's gotten thousands of letters, and essentially what's concerned here is that the Hong Kong government has allowed basically thugs to really take over the conversation in Hong Kong, and basically the police right now are not acting against the thugs.
The report, this is on the White House We the People website, where you can file a petition. We petition the Obama administration to save a primary school teacher in Hong Kong from political persecution. Everybody can access this worldwide, but especially this audience. The teacher's name is Lam. It says that huge banners left at her school calling for her dismissal. So the thugs are seeking to intimidate the school to fire this particular one teacher, and the police are standing back. They're not protecting participating. Is that correct?
They're not protecting. And the thing that's important here is that the teachers union, and basically the teachers, have had a pro-democracy bent. And so the thugs are actually going after the teachers because they're trying to go after the pro-democracy forces in Hong Kong.
Professor, I ask this question because we know that Hong Kong is listening. Are you going to be chastised, intimidated, disciplined, or fired by Johns Hopkins University because you speak out?
Yeah, of course, a lot. That the U.S. universities and actually universities in Hong Kong valued academic freedom very much. For example, the administrator that received this letter in my university, he basically emailed back the letter writer in 3 minutes after he received the letters and CC to me, and just telling the person that the university has no business in this issue. If the letter writer has different opinion with me, that he should have contacted me and discussed with me directly. So the university appropriately and immediately disregard the letter. And many of my colleagues, professors in Hong Kong, also received actually much more serious intimidation and this kind of letters. And then the universities in Hong Kong so far is holding up well and also disregarding this kind of intimidation. But in the case of primary school, it is a different story. Actually, it is the latest development of the story is that the board of directors of the school where the teacher Lam is teaching has issued a statement saying that they will put Ms. Lam under certain kind of punishment without specifying what kind of punishment.
Professor, there's a petition at the White House website. Is Hong Kong aware of this? Does the school know that this has gotten to the level of the American people?
I think in the end it is this White House petition that make these thugs or this pro-establishment organization fear about international attention. So actually it's interesting that I was interviewed in your show like August 7th, but they didn't send any letter and anything to me until the day that somebody launched the White House petition. So there is a coincidence in timing that I think that they try to do something about me, spreading the words about what is going on in Hong Kong in your very popular.
I mentioned that there are 8,700 signatures on this petition right now. They want 100,000 by September 15th, and as far as I can see, Gordon, the goons are doing the best they can to make it 100,000. Unless, Professor, do these goons, do they understand how publicity, celebrity works in America? I mean, they watch our television. Don't they know what they're doing?
I don't think they know what is working and what is not working. They just use their kind of logic to guess what other people will respond. That in mainland China, for example, and in many quarters of Hong Kong, people are afraid of getting into this kind of debate and controversy. So people has a mindset of it is better to stay away from this kind of thing. So when a boss receives a letter complaining their employees being outspoken or some doing something that is not acceptable to some group, and many boss will tend to do something to show that he's not in support of that employees. I have nothing to do with it, and so it is this kind of culture that encourages these people to do this kind of thing, and they don't have any idea about how, for example, the U.S. institutions and tertiary education institutions is valuing taking academic freedom and freedom of speech very seriously.
Quickly, Gordon, one question.
Well, Ho-fung, you're not going to be intimidated by this, but will people in Hong Kong be intimidated by the similar letter-writing campaigns?
I think in the universities is relatively well because many the university administrators and professors in Hong Kong are intellectually well known and connected, so they are in this intellectual culture that value academic freedom. But the situation has been changing. That some of the universities are changing hands with some high-level administrators taken over by some pro-Beijing figures. And also in the primary schools and in secondary school, it is much more vulnerable because they are not in this kind of intellectual institution and culture of freedom of speech and academic freedom, and they are totally relying on the government for funding.
Ho-fung is associate professor at Johns Hopkins University, the White House website. You all know how to access it. And by the way, the original crime here on Bastille Day, July 14th, was that this bold teacher shouted at thugs because she wants freedom of expression in public spaces in Hong Kong. That's the offense here, that they're writing Johns Hopkins University to tell Ho-fung that he's wrong. That's the offense. And now that we've broadcast this very carefully, Gordon, I think they're all going to get in a lot of trouble, don't you?
And we're going to increase the number of signatures on that petition.
Ho-fung is the name. If you're taking notes there in Hong Kong, I'm John Batchelor with Gordon Chang, my fellow troublemaker in New York.